both joined us last week, and we just had a good old time. We were talking like mentorship and all that good stuff, and we were like, you know what, we got to bring y'all back. Like we need more of this, and so they are back to join us this time to discuss October as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and so we're going to chat a little bit about that, give you guys an overview of it in case you may be learning about it for the first time, much like I am, and you know, we'll chat about coping. Right? How to cope with that kind of experience. So, ladies, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. What up, WURD fam? Thanks for having us back. Hello in Radio Land, everybody.
Yes. All right. So, October is a lot of awareness going on in October. You know, we have domestic violence, we have breast cancer, but I feel like one that's less talked about is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So for those who may just be hearing about this or just getting acquainted with it, can you do like kind of school us on this?
Sure. So recently in our most recent episode on YouTube, we talked about it. It's something that is kind of very near and dear to the both of us. I myself have had 2 miscarriages, and so that's kind of how I learned that it's very, very common with families. And so 1 in 4 women will experience a pregnancy loss or a miscarriage, stillbirth.
SIDS, I know that a lot of families and communities experience this kind of loss. My father's mother buried her first 2 children. They died of SIDS. And my grandmother, it was 10 of them, not 9. And so her and my grandfather buried their son shortly after, I think a day or 2 after he died. He was born with hydrocephaly, water on the brain. And that's what a lot of us refer to that condition as. And so SIDS is still pretty common. 3,500 babies each year in the U.S. die, sudden infant death syndrome. SIDS is currently the 4th leading cause of infant mortality in 2019. And then for stillbirths, 1 in 100 pregnancies result in stillbirths each year in the U.S., which is about 24,000 babies each year. So in addition to knowing Janika, who's experienced 2 miscarriages right now, about 4 or 5 of my other friends have experienced miscarriages, stillbirths, as well as SIDS. And so it's very common. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it though, because it's so hard to talk about this kind of loss when it happens.
You know, it's, Janika, when you said the statistic 1 in 4, I started thinking about all the women that I know. You know, my goddaughter passed away of SIDS. I have a cousin. I have quite a few friends who have had miscarriages, who had a stillbirth. Actually, know 2 different people who had stillbirths. So it's like now that I'm really starting to kind of step back and think about it, this is happening often, like often.
Yes.
Even in thinking about just within my sphere of understanding.
A lot of pregnancy loss happens before you realize you're pregnant, and so you'll think it's a late period, or you think you've missed your period, and it'll come 7-8 weeks, and you might think it's heavier, but it's actually a miscarriage. And so there are a lot of women who experience miscarriages but don't realize that they've even been pregnant. Gotcha. Because it's so early on.
Right. Yeah. So when we're talking about experiences like this, Janika, for you, how were you able to cope with that and to kind of heal in a way that, I mean, I guess that you feel kind of brought you back to center?
I think one of the things that helped me was knowing a little bit about the information. I remember my doctor telling me that there's nothing I could have done differently. And I think that helped alleviate some of the guilt, because the first thing you think is, what have I done? What's wrong with me? You immediately feel like something is wrong with you, because for a lot of women, you feel like this is what I'm supposed to be able to do. My body is supposed to be able to carry a child. And 80% of miscarriages are, you know, because of the egg or the sperm. It's something with the chromosomes. It's not stress, it's not work, it's not you've exercised too much. There's nothing you could have done.
Gotcha.
And so the first thing you want to do is blame yourself. or someone else is giving you suggestions, you should have done this or not done that, there's nothing you could have done. And so I think for me that was very freeing, and just to allow myself to grieve. I remember my pastor telling me, you know, if this were anybody else that you've lost, you would grieve it. Don't be afraid to grieve this just as you would anybody else.
Right.
Because at first you want to kind of keep it to yourself and not tell people, not share with people that you're dealing with this, but you kind of need to. You need to share it so that you're not kind of holding it to yourself.
Right.
Right.
What having gone through this, is there any words of comfort or encouragement that you would give to families and women who have experienced some kind of pregnancy or infant loss?
I think to let yourself feel all the emotions, because it's going to hit you differently. It might be crying at the Huggies commercial. It might be feeling a little numb and letting that be okay. Because you're going to feel a variety of different things, but not keeping it to yourself, letting people comfort you, sharing it. You don't have to kind of hold it all to yourself, but your family is grieving with you. And so it's very easy to kind of get stuck in this place of, well, I lost it.
Right.
Because yes, you went through the miscarriage, but they also are grieving the expectation. You know, they were expecting a grandchild or a niece or a nephew, and, you know, your spouse was also expecting. So yes, you miscarried, but, you know, everybody's experiencing the loss with you. And so it's okay to grieve together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know on the show, let's be clear, this is going to be, I think, like a two-part.
Our two-part segment.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
And so our first part is already up. Janika and I will be taping our second part this Wednesday. And so in our first part, we're talking about literally how you show up for yourself. Like, what happens? How do you personally manage? How do you even begin to frame or describe or even wrap your mind around what has happened? And so, because I think sometimes with the gravity, how enormous this kind of loss is,
massive.
I think it feels so big. And I think sometimes that's where some folks may get stuck in it. And so that's what we talked about in the first segment. But in the second segment, we're going to talk about how you show up to the world in terms of your relationships with your partner, with your friends, with your families, at work, what that means to possibly go to a baby shower or not go to a baby shower. And related to coping, I know for me, not just with Janika, but with other friends who are going through almost all of these losses, I think that for those who are curious or who are wondering how do they support someone who has directly experienced this loss, don't take it personal if the woman initially or sometimes withdraws. Because I know for me it's been challenging with some of my friends and loved ones who've experienced this loss because, as you just said, Janika, sometimes you may want to and need to withdraw, but then that can feel a little abrupt, like, you know, we're going through the loss too, and it's like, why are you closing yourself off to us? We want to help you get through this. And so I guess for me, I've just learned how to almost kind of be like water, to flow when it flows my way, and to let that flow like that, and to not take personal or be offended by someone in the moment if they may not want to talk about it, or if it looks like, or even if they have withdrawn, that's okay too. I think just to make sure that they know that you're there for whenever they come back. Gotcha. Because I think that's so key in helping to support women through this transition, because as you said, Janika, your loved ones were expecting, they were excited about this as well. And so while we didn't directly have the miscarriage or lose a baby, we are also grieving as well. Yeah. And so I think that's a balance.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's going to be a really compelling 2-part series that folks can check out. So let them know where they can find you at, follow you at, and check out this 2-part series on the show.
Sure. So you can watch us on YouTube at Let's Be Clear with Janika and Doc, and you can listen to us on SoundCloud and Google Play. Let's Be Clear with Janika and Doc, and you can follow us on Instagram. Let's Be Clear with Janika and Doc.
Yes.
All of that. They came on Healthy Thursday. Let me tell you how they brought donuts.
Oh, excuse us.
Balance, y'all.
Excuse
It's
us.
about balance.
Yeah, I was.
No, we'll
as long as I can have one, I can eat one.
We got celery and carrots in there too.
You
And
are
we,
lying.
and we got the
I ain't
old
even looking.
fashioned without the sugar on it.
Why?
Why? What, the donuts?
Yeah.
What?
The
Well,
old fashioned.
Well, we got the donuts.
I'm just saying.
Why would you do that?
Because it's healthy.
You know what?
You know what I'm saying.
We clearly need to go to break. Thank you, ladies, for
Thank
joining
you
us
for
this
having us
week.
again.
And Loves, you'll be able to catch them. They're coming in bi-weekly, right? So we're getting into the flow, right? So stay tuned. You're in the lounge on